quick snapshot of Argent Minerals with its share structure at 177 million shares. There's a reason why we've been able to keep the dilution down in the company. I'll come to that in a little bit of a while. We're proud of our record in that. The share price is also very attractive, around about the 3 cent level. Market cap very understated at $5 million. And we've also been particularly active in issuing options, which have been part of the reason for keeping the dilution of the shares down as we've managed the company from an initial listing at April 2008. The board of directors is lean, mean and hungry. There are 3 directors. I'm the executive director, 2 non-executives. Steve Gamble is a mining engineer with a lot of experience in getting projects off the ground. I also am a qualified engineer and have a background in investment banking, as well as working for people like BHP in the mining industry. Marcus Michael is also a corporate finance guy, and he runs a company, Marshall Michael, who does our corporate finance and our accounting. Dr. Vladimir David, can you put your hand up, please? He's our geologist. Fortunate to have Vlad on board as our key geo. Vlad was instrumental in discovering the Hera resource, in fact drilled the first 4 holes. So I got a team with a track record. 3 projects, headed up by Kempfield. That's our flagship project that's 100% owned by Argent Minerals. It has recently been upgraded to a polymetallic project featuring zinc, lead, silver, gold and possibly also some copper. West Wyalong is the second of our 2 company maker projects that are indicated by the red star. It's recently been increased to 51% interest by Argent Minerals following a nice magnetic anomaly that was discovered, indicative of a porphyry copper gold target. So we'll come to that a little bit later. I'm just going to focus mainly on Kempfield and we'll just touch on West Wyalong. Now, Sunny Corner is our 3rd project. We own 70% of that. And Sunny Corner was, at one point before Broken Hill came on board, it was the largest silver mine in New South Wales. And in fact was such a rich grade of silver there was direct shipping ore to London. Potentially there might be some feedstock there down the track as we continue to develop the resource at Kempfield. Our aspirations are to become a producer. We in fact lodged an EIS in 2013, only to be greeted by a collapse in the gold and silver prices within days of us submitting the EIS back in April 2013. Nevertheless, as Dr. John Greenfield indicated before, flexibility is key. And so as a company, we've restructured our strategy to continue with this aspiration of becoming a producer, and with Kempfield, of course, leading the way with its resource. It's got a JORC 2012 compliant resource of 21.8 million tonnes, including 33 million ounces of silver, 86,000 ounces of gold, and about 300,000 tonnes of combined lead zinc, right near the surface. So it's quite a nice resource, and it remains as an option for production in the background. We, in our EIS, submitted a heap leach project to the government for consideration, and as you know, the heap leach has a much lower capex and lower operational costs, so economically it actually looked like it was going to work at the time. Now that remains on the back burner. There's still some opportunities perhaps getting that going and generating some positive cash flow. Meanwhile, exploration remains the key focus of Argent Minerals as we move forward. Our strategy is threefold. Top of the list is exploration. That's our lifeblood. Kempfield is the flagship project as we explore some potentially very rich grades of base metals and possibly some copper and some gold, in addition to the huge silver resource that we've got there. Capital efficiency is key to running this company, and since approximately September 2013, we've managed to achieve more than $2 million in research and development grants. These have been very carefully put together. They've been approved by Oz Industry and paid to us. So, of course, every dollar that we raise that way has not had to be involved in diluting the shares of the company. So up until we did a recent cap raising in December last year, we'd only diluted our shares by about 10.5% since a whole batch of options were triggered in 2011 with the run-up in the silver price. So pretty good record in terms of managing the capital of the company. And of course, more recently, we received a grant from New South Wales Trade and Investment, for which we're enormously grateful, as one of the top five largest grants that was issued by the New South Wales government, and that's been put to good use right now as we drill the Kempfield project. And of course, I've mentioned production as being a key tenet of our strategy to generate cash flow. So, Kempfield, situated in the Lachlan Origin, and very specifically amongst a terrific neighbourhood, only 40 kilometres from Kodiak. Granted, it's a different style of deposit, being VMS compared to porphyry. We've got some very good neighbours there with North Parks and also Cowell, which is only about 37 kilometres north of our West Wyalong project. Kempfield is specifically situated on the western margin of the basin that's known as the Hill End Trough. And amongst there, we're in good company as well. All of the purple dots on the map, going down as far as Captain's Flat and our friends from Woodlawn there, they're VMS deposits. And even though the Cobar, of course, had some geological events after initial VMS deposition, it nevertheless can be argued that it's a VMS on a basin margin. So that's where we're exploring with Kempfield. And we've engaged Professor Ross Large from the Centre of Research, Excellence in Research and Deposits in the University of Tasmania. Got about 80 staff on board and a leading authority in VMS deposits. And he came up to Kempfield, did some work for us, and recognised Kempfield, particularly one area of the deposit, as having similarities to the Kew River resource in Tasmania. So when he looked at the outcropping, which looked to the rest of us as normal sort of silver barite outcropping, he took one look at it and said, this is Kew River. And so it's indicative of Kew River type footwall and hopefully some rich grades with base metals, which we've already had some intersections of, which I'll come to in a little while. So the peer group for Kempfield is very specifically Eastern Australian Paleozoic VMS deposits. So that extends from New South Wales down through Victoria and right down to Tasmania, where we've got Rosebery and Kew River and Mount Lyell and so forth. It's all part of that peer group. Great peer group to be involved with. Plan view of the site. It's huge. 4 kilometres of strike potential there, and you can see some of the IP anomalies featured on that diagram. There's a lot more IP anomalies, but we haven't put them on the same diagram because they're different types. The resource itself is coloured here, colour-coded, where the blue colours indicate the lower grades of base metal, specifically combined lead zinc. And as we go up in grade, yellow, and then red, and then purple. So just remember that as a kind of the colours get hotter, the richer the grades. And there are 3 lenses. So there's an easterly lens, lens 1. As you can see, it's mostly the lighter colours we can see from this surface view. So it's mainly a silver barite dominated lens. And then lens 2, to the next one to the west, you can see some warmer colours coming in. There's lead and zinc occurring in that lens. Lens 1 also has some lead and zinc at depth. But as we notice as we go from east to the west, the grades of lead and zinc combined increase as we go further towards the west. And then the third lens, which we believe is the beginning of a lens that potentially goes up the same strike length as lens 1 and 2, that one to the west, we made a recent find of some very rich grades of up to 18% combined lead zinc, which was extremely interesting, especially since they were noticed in a geotech hole. So I'll turn, and all these areas, before I go over the page, all the red arrows, of course, indicate that it's open, because you can see by the black dots there, that's where the existing drilling is. It's all concentrated in that area of the resource. Now, that's great because we've got a resource that is about 82% measured or indicated in terms of tonnes, but the drilling did not extend to the west towards this feature here, which is where we think the basin margin lies. And interestingly, just near there is a remnants of an old copper mine, a historic copper mine that was mined between 1901 to 1906. So Kempfield was originally a copper mine. So what do we have here? We've got grades trending east to west, increasing in base metal content and the appearance of copper right up here on the western side. Now let's just take a look over the page of the intersections. So, and that you can see that red arrow there. That's, we're looking at a cross section. And here's the geotech hole that I was mentioning that's going to the west. All the other holes are going to the east because the lenses dip steeply to the west at approximately 70 to 80 degrees. So that's why all the holes are drilling towards the east, except of course for the geotech hole, which is looking at the competency of the rock for the open cut pit design. And at around 85 to 100 metres, we intersected over 18 metres. It was 10%, it's 9.8% lead zinc, 113 grams a tonne silver, and including 5 metres of 18% combined lead zinc and 260 grams a tonne of silver. Now, the work that Professor Ross Large did on this, and those of you working in VMS deposits will be familiar with the way that the deposits are formed, that there's a zonation coming from the high temperatures to the low temperatures. And so the colder temperatures, the lower temperature parts of the resource, you'll see predominantly silver barite mineralisation, and as you head to the higher temperatures, you'll start to see increasing lead zinc, and you'll see potentially copper and gold. And that's exactly what we saw here in this scissor hole that's going towards the east, this AK136, and that's got 14 metres at 1.5 grams a tonne gold. To put that into perspective, the rest of the resource has just got a little sniff of gold, approximately 0.1 to 0.12 grams a tonne gold. So it's a reasonable credit to have, but it's nothing flash in its own right. But when you're seeing the increase of the lead zinc and then gold coming in at 1.5 grams a tonne, you can see that there's very distinct zonation occurring in this deposit, and if you look through our website and our ASX announcements, you'll see some recent work that we've done in quantifying the zonation within the deposit itself. So all of this points to richer grades to the west and also at depth. And so this is a model that Vlad David has put together with Ross Large. There's different types of models that you can have for this sort of deposit, but this one that appears to be the closest to what we know about the deposit so far, the way that the lenses are close together and dipping 70, 80 degrees to the west. There's the pancake type formation of the various layers as the black smoker, if you like, forced circulation currents up through the fault, circulation current there and a circulation current there, taking the deposition out across the seafloor at the time. And the seafloor is very clear in the drill core when you see it. So that grades there can be seen at the extremities, the blue representing the colder temperatures, red the warmer temperatures with lead zinc type mineralisation, and the yellow the highest temperature with potentially copper and gold. And so with the tectonic forces, this model says that the entire stack of the layers of the VMS deposit were overturned and tilted so they were 70 degrees to the west. So that would point to a feeder zone and more lenses out to the west. And to put it in perspective, this dotted line here is the existing resource, in which you've got the lens 1 with predominantly silver barite, lens 2 with a little bit of lead zinc starting to show, and lens 3 with those rich grades at 18%. So that's the exploration model that we're testing, and we've got 4 holes that I'll come to in a moment. This gives you a bit of a perspective of the interpreted lenses. Here's the existing lenses. You can see the lens blocks in the resource. Here's that rich stuff down here, and then a pattern of lenses according to the symmetry of what we've seen there, also aided by outcropping. So this plunge is also to the west, so we don't get any geochemical expression at the surface here, apart from the copper at the surface with that gold mine. And so this is the kind of deposit that you need to do some deep drilling on basically to discover. This is a diagram which shows some interesting work that we've done with a technique called magnetometric resistivity, or sometimes referred to as magnetometric conductivity geophysics. You'll know that zinc, particularly with the sort of mineralisation that we've got with failerite and sort of lumpy galena, it's not a great conductor despite the rich grade. So the downhole EM that we did on that rich hole with the 18% grade virtually showed just a small blip, not much at all on the downhole EM using the traditional techniques. But with MMR, what we do is we force current to flow through the ground. And the way that we do this is, and it works with longer type lenses of the length that we've got there, 1 to 2 kilometres, it works beautifully. And this was used at the Broken Hill deposit for the Potosi and the Flying Doctor deposits where they discovered the zinc lodes. MMR featured in the delineation and discovery of that resource. So basically we dig a pit. If you can imagine here, I'm just drawing this line of the lens, dig a pit to the north of it and dig a pit to the south of it by, let's say, a couple of metres by 4 metres in plan view, about 1 metre deep. Same here. Put some reinforced type wire mesh in it, a couple of bags of salt, fill it with water, you've got 2 electrodes. And then you hook a transmitter to it, and the transmitter that we used had a power rating of 70 kilowatts. So the ground is going to transmit electricity whether it likes it or not. It's like lightning. It's got to go somewhere. So it forces the current through the ground, and where the ground is more conductive is where the current flows. So the current channels through the more conductive part, and where the current is channeling, you'll get a magnetic field forming around that current, and you can measure that with detectors. And when we benchmark this against the 18% hole, we got a very distinct swing of a reading around the 85 to 100 metres that we had that 18%. So we've extended this technique. I won't go into details because of time here. You can look at our website and our ASX announcements to the work that we've done with surface MMR, and we've got some very interesting anomalies there that pretty much line up with the interpreted lenses, and we're testing that with 4 holes. First hole's already been drilled, that went to 500 metres, nice deep hole. These are the deepest holes that have ever been drilled at Kempfield. The second hole, which we're in the middle of drilling at the moment, goes to 650 metres, and then there's a third hole which will also test interpreted lenses 4 and 3, and then we're shooting another hole underneath the existing resource to test it at depth, and specifically lens 3 and lens 2. So we're really excited about this drilling program. There'll be some results coming out shortly after we receive the assays. We'll be producing a report on all this, and we're looking forward to making a discovery here of high-grade base metals, It's there somewhere. It didn't come down from the sky, it came up from underneath. And the way that the mineralisation has been deposited leads us to clearly interpret that it's richer mineralisation as we go deep. The resource is open at depth. Most of the drilling has been shallow over the years to about 100 metres. So we're drilling into territory that hasn't been tested previously. West Wyalong, very quickly, we have a very nice magnetic anomaly which we did a high resolution scan on last year to confirm older government records that potentially indicated this anomaly. It's 1.4 kilometres strike north-south, west-east about 800 metres, and it is coincident with an IP anomaly, an IP chargeability high, and also this air core drilling in the surface. So you've got three classic signs of a very nice porphyry copper gold target. And as the Cowell mine runs out, I think it's in 2024, this is a very interesting proposition, being only 37 k's down the road. So you don't have the initial infrastructure costs associated with developing a mine. So two potential company makers. Why invest in Argent? Well, clearly the market cap understates the fact that we've got such a large resource and such a large opportunity. We've got a methodical approach to exploration, and everybody who looks at it gives us very positive feedback saying, yes, we like this. Of course, the government in itself with the funding, that's encouraging that we're on the right track with our interpretations. And we're focusing on zinc, which the market likes, so it's not just precious metals, it's a polymetallic strategy now, with real evidence of high-grade lead and zinc. And as the Century mine comes off production this year, I think it's in the second half of 2015, the potential shortage of supply versus demand of zinc will become more pronounced. Strategically positioned in a very rich area, and we'd like to think that we've got a management team that has a good track record in coming up with discoveries and managing mining companies. So thanks very much.